Shavua Tov. So firstly, hopefully you guys will forgive me for the post-Shabbos schwitz. Us South Africans and Californians are not, I suppose it's not really humid for you guys. But it's very interesting. Firstly, I want to give two very sincere thank yous and shout outs. Posting Bechor Achsania to our host here from Queen's Jewish Center, Rabbi Gabel. I want to appreciate the kind words, and behind me the logo for Chazak, organization that does terrific work all over America, and we've certainly introduced them to LA, and you should continue to do your phenomenal work and ignite the souls of thousands of Jews. So it's very interesting when somebody introduces you, which is true, as someone who's a former stand-up comic, and here we are on, before the Yom Noraim. So as I ran in, someone says, Rabbi Gordon, just make sure, I know it's Slichus and it's El, but don't make it too heavy. So if people are used to my speaking style, that's one thing you don't have to worry about. I'm reminded of a very cute story. Little 7-year-old kid, Moshe, sitting in the front row of a big, one of these big modern Orthodox huge edifice, and on the wall there's a memorial to the veterans, beautiful Israeli flag, beautiful American flag, the name's all in Hebrew. So the rabbi notices this little kid's looking up at this memorial, looking whimsical, looking a little bit confused. So he wants to make sure that this kid's at ease. So he goes up to the kid and said, what's your name? He said, my name's Moshe. He said, it looks like you're a little bit confused as to, what this is on the wall. You want to know what this is? So the little kid says, yes, please, Rabbi. So the rabbi says, these are brave men and women, that died during the services. So the little kid looks up at the rabbi and he says, is that the Friday night services or is that the Shabbos service? So one thing I can guarantee you, no one's going to wipe out here. But I've been involved in public speaking all of my life, and I'll tell you there's two important things in public speaking that is clear across the board. Firstly, most people don't remember what the speaker says, but they remember how they feel. And in order to try and help a person to remember at least the main points, all the research says that we can at best remember 7 main points. So in order to help us remember some ideas that speak to the topic of making sure that we're going to make this year the best year of our lives, what I've done is I've taken the word Chazak and we made it into an acronym, and each one of these words will trigger a different idea that I'd like you to think about, and I'd like you to hopefully embrace, to Be'ezus Hashem make the year ahead the greatest year of your life. Chazak, C-H-A-Z-A-Q. Let's start off with C for Chazak. How many people do I speak to that say, Rabbi, the year ahead, I know I can, C for can, but is it going to happen? Is it really going to happen? So I want to speak briefly to the difference between two emotions. In order to have the greatest year, we've got to remember that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created every single human being as a hybrid between a body and a soul, which triggers two very different emotions. One is I feel like, the other is I want. So Rav Dessler says in Michtav Eliyahu the following: the voice that you hear in your head that talks about feel like comes from a more base animalistic place. That's your guf, that's your body. I don't think there's anyone in this room that doesn't want to have a healthy year, that doesn't want to have a successful year. So I've spoken to many people that say, Rabbi, we want to go through Shas. I want to go through the whole of Shas. 4 o'clock in the morning, when your alarm clock goes off, do you feel like waking up? But what do you want? So the the way the Almighty created the conflict between the feel like and the what. If you want to have a successful year, between now, as we start Slichas, until we're standing before the Almighty on the Yom Hadin, figure out what you really want. Because I guarantee you, in the year ahead, there's going to be that internal conflict between what you feel like and what you want. So often, as your rabbi pointed out, one of my day job is we represent a number of very famous people in the NBA and the NFL and various favorite celebrities, and it's crazy, I become their rabbi. I often say to them, especially when they come to a point where they're starting to retire from one of the teams, is I want you to picture your 98th birthday. Your significant others next to you, your best friends, your family. There's a boom mic that's going around. What do you want them to say about you? That's your legacy. So, in terms of what you want, think now, before you're standing before HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a week and a half from now, what do you want to achieve in the year ahead? And those things should be jotted down, those things should be sketched in your mind's eye. And just an idea, I spoke in Pesach over Shabbos, try and think of two things, ben adam lemakom, between yourself and Hashem, and not huge things. Something that's very palatable, a very small idea, and two things that you'd like to achieve in the year ahead between yourself and your fellow man. Man, gender neutral. So C is the difference between what you can do and what you're able to do. It comes down, according to Rav Dessler, between the dichotomy between what you feel like and what you want. People who are going to navigate the year ahead and put a premium on what they want are likely to be successful. H for Chazak, it stands for Hashem loves you. So I've been involved in the speaking circuit for many, many, many years. And if I had to summarize probably the most common thing that happens after a talk or whatever, it's something like this. Rabbi, how can Hashem love me? You don't understand, look what's going on in my life. I've got this. What that does is it places in your mind's eye a certain self-fulfilling prophecy, and you miss the opportunity to create a kli, which I'll explain. So I'll tell you where I believe this comes from. The secular world says that a happy life is a pain-free life. There's nothing further from the truth. There is nobody that you will ever meet in your life that has achieved any form of success that hasn't had pain. And by the way, the Rambam says if you have, it's a very, very scary sign. In fact, the Gemara says very clearly, if you go 30 days with some form of pain, it's not such a good thing. So the notion that a happy life means a pain-free life, that you should extricate from your mind's eye. So I want to just share a short idea so we can start building up tools to help us have the greatest year of our life. If I were to ask you to picture the following scene. You got our little Moshe again, 5-year-old kid playing with a soccer ball in the front lawn. And like anyone would expect, the soccer ball rolls out into the street, and a car comes around the corner, 1 foot away from our little hero. The driver turns up the window and gives this guy, the little kid, a chlob. What are you doing? Don't you... Like any normal kid, a few minutes later, it's a normal, precocious kid. Kid starts playing with the ball again. Ball rolls out in the street. Next driver, 1 foot away, slams on brakes. Driver rolls up the window and gives this kid musa like he's never heard before. Kid goes back to the front door. Ball rolls out in the middle of the street. Third driver comes to little Moshe. This time, the driver pulls up his handbrake, stops the car, and starts chasing our little hero. And he chases him around the back of gardens, over a fence, finally comes to a cul-de-sac, and the driver of the third car grabs our little Moshe and he gives him a punch. Who was the third driver? Who was the third driver? So what did he say? Excellent. Excellent. The third driver was his father. The first two drivers didn't care enough. So the notion that you have pain in your life is proof positive that your Father in Himmel cares about you. The notion that there's indifference is the highest form of pain according to the Rambam. So the notion of, how do I know Hashem loves you? Unless you tell me that the last 30 days of your life have been a cakewalk, Hashem loves you. So how do we take that into the new year? Is I want you to try and get out of your head the notion that a happy life means a pain-free life. And I want you to try and recalibrate into a way of thinking which is very difficult, and that is, we only see a keyhole. What's going on behind the door is obviously we're not privy to. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves you more than you love your own children. And just like the analogy of a GPS, we all know the very final destination. Sometimes when we recalculate, because Hashem loves us and sends certain things in our journey which are often painful, in recalculating, it's out of complete altruistic love. So what I'd like you to start thinking about in the year ahead is that pain is not bad. Rather, pain is the price that you're going to pay for greatness, and pain is proof positive that Hashem loves you. C is what you can do and what's going to happen. We spoke about the difference between what you feel like and what you want. H is for Hashem loves you. A for Chazak is attitude. So a few things. Number one, we live in a very tough generation. The proliferation of technology, social media, we're living the I generation. It's probably one of the most narcissistic generations ever. In fact, 3-4 years ago, the Oxford Dictionary every year incorporates certain new words into the dictionary. In 2013, the new word into the Oxford Dictionary was selfie. That's the way the world is holding today. And then you've got a computer company called Apple, where every single technology permutation starts with I. iTunes, this is the I generation. The Torah says exactly the opposite. Nothing is coming to you. You woke up this morning, your soul was restored to you, that's a gift. And the first thing a Jew says when we wake up in the morning is Modeh Ani. People focus on the Modeh Ani, but if you look at the last two words, Rabbi Emunasecha, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying, I have faith in you. There were thousands of people that didn't wake up this morning. The reason why you woke up this morning is your tafkid, your mission in this world is far from over. I believe in you. The number one thing in terms of attitude is having hakaras hatov. Our religion, being Jewish, comes from Yehuda. Hodu means comes from the concept of gratitude. So if you can try and refocus and think of those things that you are blessed with, instead of counting that person's car, that person's wife, count your blessings. We are part of 0.02% of the world population. The people sitting here tonight, you people are part of, at best, 10% of the 0.2%. And I've written a lot about Jewish demography. So in the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, every single person sitting in this hall is a diamond. You should know that we represent, for sure, some of the most famous people. These are Mishagoyim that have no clue what the world is about. And the whole world thinks that these are the idols. Clueless. The people sitting in this room are absolute idols, are absolute diamonds, and this is, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is using every single one of you as a way to continue to hold the flame to the next generation. So the gratitude that we should be doing cartwheels at the notion that you're part of not only the chosen people, but you some of the very few people on a Motzei Shabbos that have taken the time to understand that Rosh Hashanah is going to affect your entire year, your entire decade, your eternity. Nebuch, there are hundreds of thousands of Jews out there that are partying right now. They have no idea. Unfortunately, the average Jew has New Year, under Times Square, the falafel ball drops, they kiss the next person next to them. It's ridiculous. The fact that you're here, you've got to realize, the Gemara says very clearly, is that while we make our decisions, we have Bechira, that there are usually a certain chelek of Klal Yisrael which really carries, so to speak, the mission of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So know how grateful we should all be. It does not mean that that's impervious to pain. We just said that pain doesn't mean something is bad. Pain means that the Almighty is with you and directing you. So we said C is for the difference between can I achieve certain things that I want. We spoke about the dichotomy between what you feel like and what you want. We said H for Chazak stands for Hashem loves you. We said there's a myth that a happy life means a pain-free life. Hopefully we dispelled that. We then went on to A for attitude, and the most important concept of an attitude of gratitude. We said that that's, in fact, if you look at it from an etymology perspective, that's how we get our name as Jews. Let's talk about the Z for Chazak, which is man, time. So I cannot tell you how many times I've spoken at Pesach, whatever, at programs, and someone comes to the podium after and says, Rabbi, this is amazing, thank you, very inspirational, but you don't understand. I'm 71 years old. I missed it. Well, I mean, it's fantastic, but what are you giving me a whole bunch of his horrors? It's a huge mistake. So let me tell you a few things about time. Firstly, let me give you a perspective purely from the secular world. Perhaps you people might have heard of a franchise chicken company which was supposedly started by Colonel Sanders. He was 56 years old when he started Kentucky Fried Chicken. Perhaps you might have heard of a famous artist that is well known for doing the Bastion of St. Peter's in Italy. So Michelangelo was 64 years old when he did the St. Peter's Bastion. Perhaps you might have heard of one of the most famous architects in the world, Andrew Lloyd Webber, who finished the Guggenheim when he was 91 years old. And perhaps you might have heard of a furniture store, which is an assembly store of furniture, IKEA. IKEA was started by someone who was 92 years old. The notion, it's never, ever too late to be the person that you're meant to be. So I found a beautiful piece to illustrate this, better than anything I've seen in a lot of writing in a while. It was before my time, but there was a famous column called Dear Abby. So I see some people are familiar. So the real Abby, it wasn't her real name. It was actually a Jewish woman. And in one of the columns, the person wrote in and said, Abby, I want to get your advice, I want to get your thoughts. I would love to go to medical school, but I figured out if I go to medical school, complete my internship, and then start practicing, it'll be 7 years from now, I'll be 43 years old. So Abby's answer was beautiful. She said simply, in 7 years from now, how old will you be if you don't go to medical school? The time's gonna pass either way. So I always tell people, and this is a very common thing, the could have, would have, should have, when's the best time to plant an oak tree? Oak tree takes a long time to germinate and to develop. When's the best time to plant an oak tree? It's about 20 years ago. When's the second best time to plant an oak tree? Right now. One thing we absolutely know, your Rabbi spoke about tshuva, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us more than one chance. The notion that it's too late is completely and utterly antithetical to a Torah concept. Firstly, it's never too late. And secondly, as a speaker, you have no idea how rewarding and what it makes me feel standing up on a Motzei Shabbos, seeing a number of people and understanding that people realize why we're in this world. For those of you who came in a little bit late, we spoke about the fact that how do we remember certain tools to make the year ahead the most successful year of our life? We took the word Chazak to make an acronym. We said C is the difference between I can do something versus whether I will do something. H is Hashem loves you. A is one's attitude. Z stands for Zman, which is time. The next A stands for something which we all face in this journey called life, and that's adversity. So one thing, again, I guarantee you, there are very few guarantees in this world, but I guarantee you, in this journey called life, every single person in this room will face vicissitudes. So here's a question I'm asked a lot. Why couldn't we, every Friday night we give a bracha to our sons and daughters? Why couldn't we give a bracha? You know, I blessed Jennifer and Lisa, amazing girl. She went to Harvard. She went on to marry the doctor from Manhattan, a white picket fence in the Labrador. Our imaos and our matriarchs and patriarchs went through a tremendously tough life. So again, in the time allotted, we can't really get into the reason for these things, but we do know we're the protege of our patriarchs and matriarchs, and we're in this world to actualize our potential. In order to flex certain spiritual muscles, by definition, it's going to take a certain amount of adversity, because there's certain things that don't grow unless there's friction. So we know that things lie dormant. There's many mashalim in Shas. The example, for example, of oil in an olive, until you squeeze the olive, it doesn't come out. The analogy we know of wine certainly doesn't happen unless you squeeze the grape. The precious stones don't happen until you dig deep. These are all pedagogical ways that we can understand why we have to go through certain things, because it takes to pull out the potential that every single one of us has in our DNA. It takes a certain amount of vicissitudes. So that one of the most beautiful stories which I want to share with you is the way I'd like you to think of the year ahead. When you face adversity, it's a beautiful story of a mother who knew that her young daughter had just broken up with her boyfriend. She was in pain. 14-year-old girl, she said to her daughter, she wanted to teach her some life lessons about how to handle when the going gets tough, when we have setbacks, when we have adversity. She said, come into the kitchen, and on the stove, there were 3 pots. And in each pot, there was water. She took the stove and she cranked on the gas on each, underneath the stove, so that the flame would ignite, and said, sweetheart, I want you to come back 20 minutes from now. 20 minutes later, her daughter comes back into the kitchen, and lo and behold, each of the pots has boiling water. In pot number 1, she put a carrot. In pot number 2, she placed an egg. And in pot number 3, she put some coffee beans. She said, my dear daughter, every single person in this journey called life at some point is in boiling hot water. Here's the choice, whether you're going to be a carrot, an egg, or a coffee bean. Allow me to explain. Some people, when the hot water eventually hits, how are we going to pay the bills? We've just been through, and we're going through a most horrific pandemic. People, Rahman al-Islam, have lost their lives, people not well. When people face these vicissitudes, here are the 3 choices. You can become the carrot. When a carrot is thrown into boiling hot water, it breaks up, it fragments, and it falls to pieces. So option 1, you can fall to pieces. Option 2 is when you put an egg in boiling hot water, the egg becomes hard. It boils. So option number 2, sweetheart, is when you inevitably land up in hot water in your life, you can become very stoic, you can become cold, you can become cynical, you can shut down to the world. But my advice to you is that when the boiling hot water lands up in your life, that you become the coffee bean. The coffee bean takes the situation and takes the normal water and changes into a beautiful aroma, a tasteful, beautiful cup of coffee. When, not if, when the tough times arrive in the year ahead, it's some of the things we've discussed. It's about our attitude. It's about not thinking God's out to get you. He's not out to get you. Pain is the price. Pain is not bad. If you embrace the idea of, I'm going to take the situation and I'm going to make this into coffee, we'll be able to take the stumbling blocks and turn them into stepping stones. So for people who came in late, we're going through the acronym Chazak to think of the tools to take into the next year to make it the best year of our life. C stands for can. We can do certain things, we've got huge potential, but will we? That's the dichotomy between whether it's going to be our neshama or our body, which is going to be the overriding force in the year ahead, whether we feel like something being your guf, your body, or whether you want something being your neshama. H, and know that Hashem loves you. We spoke about the fact that a happy life does not mean a pain-free life. In fact, the Rambam says that pain, indifference, is the highest form of pain. We know that, by the way, from the Nachash in the time of Gan Eden. Number 3, we spoke about an attitude. The most important thing about having an attitude of gratitude in the world of entitlement out there. If you look at all the research on the most peaceful and happy people are people who have gratitude. We spoke then about Zman, Z for Chazak, the notion of it's never too late to be the person that you were meant to be. The penultimate letter, the second A, was adversity and how to respond. When the hot water lands up in our life, we can either become a carrot and fall apart, we can become like the egg and become hard and stoic, or we can take the lemon and make it into a lemonade. The Q for Chazak is, I want you to quit living in limbo. Let me explain to you what I mean by this. In my many years of speaking at many different events, here's a very common thing that I hear. Rabbi, this is great. The idea of going to Israel to study, I love it, but you don't understand, Rabbi. I've got a storm going on in my life. You see, I have to first finish college, and then after college, I've got to work. I'd love to do this, Rabbi, but you don't understand. I've got a storm in my life. I'm still single. I have to first find the right person, and then, Rabbi, you don't understand. I love your ideas, but I've got a storm going in my life. I am married to a Macha Shefa. I first have to get rid of her, and then, Rabbi, you don't understand. So let me tell you something, as someone who's been speaking for many, many years, and hundreds of thousands of, I don't know how many thousands of people at this point in my life. Everyone has a storm. Everyone has a storm. You want to make the year ahead a successful year? Allow me to tell you, we're not in this world to wait for that storm to subside. It's an optical illusion. You're waiting for this nirvana when you've got money in the bank, everything's calm, you're watching this, it's never going to happen. That's not why we're in this world. We're not in this world to wait for the storm to subside. We're in this world to dance in the rain. That's why. You want to have a successful year, I guarantee you that there's going to be some things in the year ahead that I don't want to happen to you. That the Almighty, in His benevolence, knows what's right for us. And if we're going to say, 1 second, I can't start living the life that I really want to live because this is not you don't understand, I've got a peckle. I hope everyone in this shul has a peckle. We're not here to wait till this perfect moment. We're here to dance in the rain. I want to end with a story as we're going to Slichas. And the reason why we're here, the reason why we recite Slichas, and something that I'd like you to take with you into Rosh Hashanah. There's a reason why, from a halachic perspective, you have to say Slichas a minimum, according to Ashkenazim, of 4 days before Rosh Hashanah. What's the reason? By the way, the fact that you're saying it's Sunday now is because if Rosh Hashanah falls on a Monday and Tuesday, so you say it the Sunday before. But you can never say, you have to have at least 4 days before. Why? Because as your rabbi pointed out, this is an unbelievable gift. Hashem's giving you a gift of recognizing that Rosh Hashanah is not about this. That's not Rosh Hashanah, it's the wrong holiday. Rosh Hashanah is recognizing that we've got a king that loves us, right? And then we've got the biggest gift 10 days later of Yom Kippur. The 4 days before is because in the times of the Beis HaMikdash, one of the process of saying sorry, if you will, part of the vida was korbanos. And before we offered up a korban to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we had to check for any mum, any blemish on the animal, and we were given 4 days to really check. If you want to really appreciate what that means for us here in the year 2021, is between now and Rosh Hashanah, it's a time to really check, take stock. And the most important thing about Rosh Hashanah, which I think most people don't understand, the biggest gift of Rosh Hashanah is HaKadosh Baruch Hu is firstly your father. It's not some judge that's trying to give you a parking ticket. And he's judging you, Masher Sham, as you stand there. Not what you did 3 weeks before. What do you mean, Masher Sham? There's one major nakuda, and I don't think that people share this enough. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to know what's your kavanah. What do you want in the year ahead? Why should he give you a 1-year extension of your contract? I will tell you, I'm speaking at an event straight after this. It's a high school reunion. I spoke to someone at the high school reunion. It's a 40-year high school reunion. So one of the guys at the high school reunion said, Rabbi, this is amazing. It's wonderful to see you again. I remember you from South Africa.
And he said, I want you to know, it's been 40 years, but I'm the same old guy. I don't think you realize what a tragedy that is. If you're the same person as you were 40 years ago, my friend, you're a walking cadaver. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to know, as you stand before the Almighty a week and a half from now, in order for you to get an extension of your contract, what do you want to achieve in the year ahead that will help you grow as a human being, help you grow as a yid between yourself and God, and between your fellow person? I want to end with a story which hopefully will tie this all together. The reason why we're in this world, something to think about in Rosh Hashanah, and hopefully this will hit the spot. We spoke about a reunion. The story goes like this. It was a reunion 30 years after school. They were having some kind of an event, and one of the gentlemen in this co-ed school said to their headmaster, looked across the hall and noticed a young lady, and said to his headmaster, I don't remember that young lady from high school. Just the way she carries herself, she seems so refined, she seems to be so idle. Do you mind if you give me her phone number? So the headmaster said, I don't mind, Larry, but I want you to remember, Jennifer, the girl that you pointed out, is blind. Larry said, I want the phone number, she seems terrific. Larry calls Jennifer, one date leads to the next, engaged, boom, they get married. And he sees, Larry's a terrific person, and he sees and he feels the pain of Jennifer. That Jennifer doesn't see a setting sun. She doesn't see the beautiful colors of spring. She's unable to see so much of what God has created, and it's hurting him so much vicariously. He starts to do research, and he finds out that at Cleveland Clinic, there's a retina operation. There's a specific operation whereby, if it's successful, God willing, Jennifer will see again. Comes back to their home in Brooklyn and says, Jen, you're not going to believe this. I did some research. There's a specific operation that if it's successful, you'll be able to see again. But there's only one catch. There's a long line for this operation. It's highly specialized. There's only one person in Cleveland that does this. It's a 25-year wait to get to this operation. And he sees his beloved wife, a tear wells up in her eyes, and he cannot stand the pain that he's looking at the woman that he's dedicated his life to. The next day, the hero of our story, Larry, comes running up the stairs, so to speak, of their Brooklyn place and says, Jen, you're not going to believe this. I leapfrogged over everyone, over the long line, pack your bags, we're going to Cleveland, we're next. He said, before we leave New York to go to Cleveland from the operation, I need to tell you something. Jennifer, if this operation is a success, then in the post-op room, when they remove your bandage, immediately you will be able to see. And I want you to know, Jennifer, that if it, God willing, that this operation is a success, you'll open your eyes and you'll see a man with dark glasses and a cane, because Jennifer, I too am blind. They get in the taxi goes to the airport, boom, they're live in Cleveland, operation. Jennifer begins removing her bandage, and she looks, and as warned by her beloved husband Larry, she sees a man with dark glasses. They make their way after the checkout back to New York. This is unbelievable. Jennifer starts seeing the world. She sees the blue skies. She sees the sunset. She sees a spring morning. She wants to travel. She wants to make up for lost time. She says, Larry, I need to see Paris. I need to see the Western Wall. And it's tough for Larry. And months lead to years, and Jennifer eventually comes home and says, Larry, this is the hardest thing in the world. But it's like a ball on a chain. I can't go through my life like this. Larry, I have to get a divorce. And Larry, being the altruistic, beautiful person that he is, says, if that's the best thing for you, Jen. And he calls his brothers to pick him up, and as he's packing up his belongings, he says to his soon-to-be ex-wife, he said, I left an envelope for you. on the pillow in the master bedroom. Please read it. Click. Larry leaves with his brother. Jen goes up, and true to Larry's word, there's an envelope sitting on the pillow. Opens up the envelope, and this is what the letter read. My dearest Jen, I love you more than words can say. I want you to have a great life. I want you to have a happy life. There is only one thing that I ask of you. Jennifer, look after those eyes, because Jennifer, they were my eyes. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu, before your neshama comes down to the world, blows, so to speak, a part of himself into each and every single one of us and says, look after that neshama. And after 120 years, when we come back to Shamayim, that's going to be the bechir, the test that we all get. How did we look after that neshama? My friends, in a week and a half, we are going to be done. We're going to be judged for a day that's going to affect every single one of our lives. The decade is going to affect us for eternity. This is the time before we start slichos. Think about the idea of look after that neshama. Think about two things that you can do in the year ahead in your journey in Yiddishkeit between yourself and God. And think about two things between yourself and your relationship with other people. Make sure that when you're standing before the Almighty, Masher Husham, when He judges you then, that you're not chas v'shalom the same person as you were last year. You're not just another year. That make it so that Almighty can understand that you want to grow, that you want to refine yourself, that you want to get an extension. And Be'ezus Hashem, if we take some of these ideas to mind, you should all be benched with a year of gesund, a year of simcha, bracha, and only good things. It's a pleasure to you all. I wish you a Shana Tova.